What up, what up? Welcome to another episode of Water for the Thirsty, where it's the word simply refreshing. I'm the facilitator of the conversation. I'm Jared. With me tonight, we have the Bishop, Sharika, and Jerry.
Yes, sir.
I was gonna give you a label there, Jerry, but I
I
decided
was gonna
to
say,
put it again, like right at the last minute, right.
Wow.
I was gonna say the elder, the
Yeah,
Grand
no,
Maester,
I was gonna refer to his pops. So I was,
the PK.
yeah, I was
Oh
gonna.
man.
I
I'll
was
take
like,
the
like,
elder.
nah,
I'll
you
take
ain't
the
like that.
elder,
So.
please. Yeah.
So that's why I just say Jerry. That's why I just came through like that.
I like the Grand Maester,
Oh, that's
the
not-
all-knowing.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
You
like
can do that.
I'm in my medieval bag, right? And like the Grand Maester is like the guy who knows everything in the library. Like they've read all the
You're
books.
watching too much Dragons. That's what we're
I'm telling you, you gotta watch the. If you're not watching the dragons out there, folks, HOD is it.
Okay.
And I'm
I'm gonna wait
rewatching.
till they're done. I can't do it in the middle. It's too much stress on me.
So you won't watch it for another 12 years in a slave because the next season doesn't come out for another 2 years.
Yeah, that's my understanding because I didn't
Next
get
season is not for 2 years.
yeah, I didn't get into the first one until like I was when I got into the first one, it was completely done, right? And so it was now on
Right.
the streaming service, right? And I was watching it back to back, and I noticed that the little girl now looked grown, and I was like, when did that happen? And then I realized this thing took 10
2
years to
years.
produce, and I was like, oh wow, I watched 10 years in 2 months, okay, because that's what happened with me. But yeah, so I decided I'll just wait until they're done with it, and then I'll do the same
Go
thing.
again. Okay.
I'll go again in 10 years.
You
10
need
years
to.
or so.
You gotta watch the HOD. I got my dad watching it now. It's crazy.
I can't do it in their sequence. There's too much time in between. As you know, Anyway, we are here to chop it up about the word simply very refreshing. We didn't meet last the first Friday in July, but since the last time we did meet, which was the third Friday in June, we have been finished. We finished John and Chronicles. We finished Psalms. We started Proverbs. We went to Thessalonians and Timothy, and then we did Obadiah, Joel, Jonah, Amos, because those related to the kings that we were covering in First Kings and Second Chronicles. So it's a lot of content that we have covered. So that's kind of where our conversation is coming from. I know Shrika was just going through her notes to see what she had there, and were you successful?
I did Proverbs 12. Hated it. Yuck.
That Proverbs 12?
Yeah.
You hated it?
I shouldn't say that. I was having a rough day, and I read it.
Wow.
And I started to dissect it.
The whole thing or a couple of verses?
I feel like every couple I was like, chaw. You know,
What version were you reading in ESV?
my only version that I read in ESV.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start from the top, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever hates discipline, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. And he who hates reproof is stupid.
That's kind of harsh, right? Like, you're stupid if you hate reproof.
Like, let's start there, right?
But it's
First of
facts,
all, smack in the face. Is it? Because I don't like.
Yeah, but that just doesn't. I mean, let me say it this way: it doesn't feel all Jesus lovey. You know, it feels more. And
I would.
it doesn't feel all Jesus lovey to call somebody stupid. You know.
Well, so I recently started reading this book by you know that rapper KB. Of course, you know KB.
Yeah.
He has this book called Dangerous Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about how Jesus flipped not just tables but the understanding or the perspective on what authority is and what leadership is and what so many things. And it's like, we have this idea that he's this sort of touchy-feely, effeminate kind of namby-pamby, like, okay, they almost see Jesus because we know him from having an earthly mother. We almost give him a motherly tone. And he's like, no, he was all man, all brute, and all like his father, forgiving, loving, but he would call you out and he would set you straight, and he wasn't afraid to crack the whip. But there's, and if you're being stupid, he would tell you, Being stupid.
challenges the picture of God that they're giving to me to have him say, "Hey, stop, don't be stupid." That
Yeah.
just it doesn't jive with the Sabbath School Jesus, the children Sabbath School Jesus.
Who would hold your hands and sing Kumbaya and ask you to, maybe after
Be,
prayer and
be
fast we talk
smart,
about it,
young
right?
man. Be wise. No, you don't like to be corrected. You're a fool. You're stupid.
What's interesting is that it doesn't say that you are smart because you love discipline or knowledge. It just says you're dumb if you don't like rebuke, right? And rebuke in so many ways is like to be told wrong, right? Like I
Hmm.
rebuke this or
Be
whatever. So it's like
corrected.
it doesn't mean that you're smart because you like knowledge. It's just you're dumb if you don't like it,
Yes.
Okay.
right?
I want to ask you a question on that, Shrika. You tell me what you think, because I read it. Now, this is psychologists saying this, right? That we always talk about we we thrive better, we do better when we have this very loving, supportive kind of, you know, calm, peaceful interaction. But they found that that actually generally enables our bad behavior, bad habits more than if somebody just calls us out, right? I'm not. I'm still trying to decide where to land on that in terms of whether I agree or disagree. But it's almost like I'm getting the sense that this is what he's doing in the text. It's almost like, yeah, I'm just gonna call you stupid if you're being stupid. But I'm just curious to hear what your perspective is. If you think, you know, sometimes you really just need to focus on saying it like it is, because I don't. You have some strong opinions that some people might think are abrasive, but I don't ever recall you being disrespectful. It's like, this is the way it is. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's also great. But
These are
no
all
harm, no foul.
these are all facts. I was actually using Water for the Thirsty as an example a couple weeks ago. Where back in the day, I used to be rather argumentative. And I remember Jared must have apologized to me on behalf of somebody else. And Jared told her, like, Sharika don't care. Like, you're not offending her. Like, she hasn't given it twice the thought. And I
Wow.
was like, I really haven't. Like I said what I said. So you're right. I do believe that I can have some strong opinions, right?
And maybe that's the Christ they're portraying here, where it's like,
No, I think I'm more God the Father sometimes. But what I will say, it depends on the person. Two things are at play. Depends on the person. Like, so I'm very negatively motivated. You call me stupid, that's not gonna work. Hold my
right.
beer, right? And I don't drink beer. But my brother is very positively motivated. And so if you call him dumb, he's just gonna be like, that's fine. You're right. I'm going home. Take my ball and I'm going home.
Mm.
And so I always told my mom, like, I was like, you had to figure out which kid you were talking to because one is going to react one way and the other one's going to react another way. And so that's at play. And then I think the second thing is some people, regardless of how you say it, are always going to be offended.
Yeah.
Like, and
Oh,
so,
that's for real. Just
and
having a
so
conversation like that at work today, like y'all just need to open your mouth and say something, like, please.
It's almost like they're looking for something to be like, oh, that's so offensive.
I don't feel safe. Okay.
like,
A closed
okay.
mouth don't get fed. We gonna make this place safe for you and you still ain't talk. Closed mouth don't get
Oh
fed.
my
Open your
goodness.
mouth and say something.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't really solve for those people either. And this is gonna sound bad, but I do think there's something to be said about these quote spaces by which we live in this euphoric world of no one will ever tell me negative or no one will ever counter my argument and my feelings are not only valid but real. Like when you raise that way, it's a delusional state of being.
It is.
And so it's counterproductive to your development because that's not the real world. Like, God forbid you run into somebody like me who really doesn't care, right? Like, oh, And Jared will tell you, I've run into people at work where they just don't like the way that I move. Like they just don't. Like they're like, Sharika, I don't feel safe around her. For why? And their response was because her ability to lead and her assertiveness. You mean me as a person? Like there's nothing I can do about that, right? Like, and I mean ran it up the ranks.
Don't you want people who can lead and be assertive?
No.
No, actually,
No.
no. You want people. The movement now is the people who coddle and affirm rather than affirm and correct. And I, there's a movement away from this kind of. And I don't. Your Bible says rebuke. Mine says correct. But no, people. When you hear the thing, this is my truth. And I know people have their own perspective and they're entitled to their opinions. And the way that they see things is the way that they see things. Their perspective becomes their reality. But there is there are other perspectives, and then there's the objective, whatever it is.
Yep.
So we kind of in a space where correction is not welcomed and is seen as offensive, which is why. And you even see it sometimes in the church in the way that we talk,
Is it that we don't want to correct people because it'll destroy their delusions? Or people don't want to be corrected because, again, it goes contrary to whatever they're deluding themselves about, right?
Right, and that's what this verse is, I think, would be suggesting, that if you want to hold on to your delusions and you don't want to be corrected because you don't want your delusions to be shaken, then what does the Bible call you? I think my version says stupid. Courtney, what does your version say? Yeah, Proverbs 12:1. Just bringing you in. Proverbs 12:1. Mine says stupid. Yours says stupid. What does yours say, Jerry?
Oh, I'm in ESV too. Stupid.
Stupid. Okay.
I could check another one, but
another one. Does another one say foolish? And
so.
are those interchangeable? Is stupid the same as foolish? I mean,
stupid is way more insulting.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I feel like, but yeah.
And I think too, Jared, that's why we can't even have civil discourse on anything anymore. We can't agree on we can't disagree in an agreeable way, because it's almost like if you disagree with my perspective on something, you're saying that you're devaluing me as a human. And it's like, how did we get
here?
What I think is, there are some people who do take it overboard, and when they do correct and when they do disagree, they do that, right? And I think there are enough people who have been affected by the people who do that, that the pendulum swing is all the way on the other side, not in how do I correct better and be more respectful in my correcting, but just allow me to be as I am.
It's funny because, like, there's someone in my life who will remain nameless for the reasons of the show. And they always like they have like their own opinions on their body types and things of that nature. And I'm just like, they're like, oh, so and so told me I was fat. And I'd say, is so and so fat? They'd say, yeah. I said, somebody who's fat can't call somebody else fat. That doesn't make any sense. Like, they're bigger than you. Why does this matter? Right? And I don't mean that to be insulting. I mean that to say, to your point, Jerome or Jerry, it's irrelevant, right? Like, we can agree, we can disagree on this. I could think I'm one size and you can think I'm another size. The fact of the matter is the two can be true at the same time, because my perspective and your perspective are two different perspectives. The fact of the matter is you are bigger than me. That's the only fact at the table. So if we want to focus on that, we can. But you might be acceptable in your eyes, and that's okay. And I might be acceptable in my eyes.
And that too is okay.
Right? Like, the two can be true. Right?
So what's the relationship, as you described that, between correction and disagreement?
So correction, in my opinion, is a factual thing, right? Like, for instance, or even not even a factual thing, my truth. I can correct you on my truth, right? You can say, oh, Sharika, I think that you're an extrovert. And I can say, no, that's not true. I am an introvert. I am a great acting extrovert, right? Like, that's a correction for me. I have a fact that I know for sure is a fact, and I can offer that to you.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's where, Jared, to your point, things have continued to devolve because now we just argue about truth and facts, right? Alternative facts and my truth, your truth, and it's like because we know if we go to that, I don't know if you want to call it the lowest common denominator, then it's almost like, well, if this is the fact, then why are we having an argument? Oh well, now yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what
And
I
I've
love.
heard it said that 2 times where a wise person don't argue, when they're right and when they're wrong.
Which means they just don't.
Anybody got time? And Jay-Z says it, from afar you can't tell a fool from an intellect. Like, what are we doing here? Right? Like, but I think we're in a society that's more interested in proving someone incorrect. And I don't say wrong because I don't know if it's wrong. Most times it's incorrect versus being accepting of multiple opinions that are outside, right? Like, I feel like I find myself in conversations about pronouns or gender or sex and things of that nature, and people are like, well, what's your opinion? My opinion is irrelevant, to be quite frank. I don't have one, right? What you want to be is on you. Like that, it doesn't change the price of sliced bread on a Tuesday for me, and I'm okay with that. But they're like, you know what I mean? Like, we're in that society that it's like, no, if you don't like what I'm saying or doing, then we must be at war. And it's like,
no, one don't have anything to do with the other necessarily.
it doesn't pay the mortgage. Like,
Right.
so I didn't. So go back to my favorite, least favorite read. We go further down. No one is established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous will never be moved. That is false. Right? That made me feel some type of way.
Read that again.
No one is established by wickedness, but but the root of the righteous will never be moved.
No, that is not always true.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jerry. Go ahead.
It's funny we stumbled upon this because I didn't realize until I was reading down that this was actually used by Jerry Flowers in a sermon. He didn't quote all this stuff to the top, but he was actually talking about when the Bible speaks about something being established, what's the context it meant it in? Because established, his philosophy is everything happens in the spiritual realm first, then in the physical. So, paraphrasing him slightly, don't remember how exactly he said it, but basically he was saying when God is here talking about establishing, he isn't talking about you in the physical realm becoming noteworthy or having money or something. If you are practicing wickedness, if you're not doing things, as he likes to say, the king's way, your name being established for him. You can't establish your name forever and ever in the Lamb's Book of Life. You might get some notoriety or something here, but that's going to be it. And he drew an example, and I think he tied it into the end where it says, in the path of righteousness is life, and in its pathway there is no death. It doesn't mean you won't physically die here, but then you will live forever. That's what being established is, really having your name in Lamb's Book of Life and being able to live forever. If you just think of it in context of, well, rich and famous, noteworthy here, then it would seem to be incorrect, right? Yeah.
Correct, it would. And now as you say that, but my version says, but if people do what is right, they can't be removed from the land. Another thing that I think about when I think about this verse is the guy who's writing Proverbs has the perspective, or would be coming with the perspective of God's promise to the children of Israel to inherit the land. And there is that promise there that if you do what is right, your life will be long in the land. Like, the whole removal from the land is for not living right. So you can feel pretty confident that if you do what is right, God will preserve you in the land, no matter what the challenges that you may face are. And so I hear you, Jerry, and and that idea jives with what you have said.
Sharika, I'm seeing those tumblers in Sharika's brain going.
Well, I would even say from the place where God has established you, even if you don't want to say the literal land, because in this idea, the land is a place where God promised them and tell them, this is yours, I'm going to give this to you.
Right.
If you do what is right, it'll always be yours. It'll be yours for you and your family forever. That was the promise given to them. So that this verse sits on top of that understanding.
Yeah.
And when you listen, or if you just read through the stories, you know, God is always talking about, you're not doing right. I will spew you from the land. I'll eject you from the land. I'll kick you out. You know, the land, you know, will stop producing for you, all those kinds of things. And it's, you even see this pattern of do what is right so that your life in the land will go well.
Yeah.
You know, you'll thrive in the land. And it makes me think, you know, we spend a lot of time, at least in our faith tradition, talking about life in the next life. But these scriptures seem to put for the quality of life here in the land, here, right now. And you see a whole lot of that in the Old Testament in particular. That emphasis on living and living well in the land and thriving in the land, you know, in the here and now. And so, you know, those thoughts start to come to mind as I'm, you know, thinking this through out loud with you guys.
I remember I think it was Dr. Daniel saying, you know, Jesus came to save lost lives, but he also came to save the life that was lost in terms of the quality of life we are meant to experience here and now. And he said, you know, there are people who you could have everything this world could have to offer, and you have the quality of your life literally sucks. And so it's basically just you going from high to high, you know, ambient to whatever to whatever, whatever. You're always chasing release because while you have things, you don't have that real um, quality of life, right?
Right.
I guess is yeah.
Bishop, you settled in? Oh,
So I guess for me, what's happening with these verses is that we're using the words like but, and in my opinion, but is like the I want to say opposite, but the reverse, and it's not. I think that's where I'm getting stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like no one is established in wickedness, but the root of righteousness will not be moved. That doesn't mean it's established either. Or like the thoughts of the righteous are just. The counsels of the wicked are deceitful. Thoughts and counsels are two different things. Or like whoever works his land will be plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense.
so interesting, Shrika. There's no literal but word there. It's but the root. It's a combo word.
What does it mean?
Well, it's the root for wood. It's a combo word. That's a. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a. What's this? How you use that word in languages? It's a C word for when you. I wouldn't say configure. It's not configure. Conjugation of the word root, as in a bottom or lowest stratum. People living in firmness or permanence. Bottom, heels, root. And that's in 12, 3. King James, Proverbs 12:3, King James Version. A man shall not be established by wickedness, but the root of righteousness shall not be moved. Oh, that's even more interesting word there. If it's the root of righteousness shall not be moved, that's very different from but people who do what is right can't be removed from the land. I mean, that's a real paraphrase there of that idea, given that the original language is closer to the root of righteousness shall not be moved. I wonder what another version says. That's interesting, because those two have a similar idea, but the word choice is very,
Very different. Yeah.
very different. Um,
Amplified says, "A man will not be established by wickedness, but the root of the," and it has in, I guess, I'll say, quotes, "consistently righteous will not be moved."
yeah, New International Version says, "No one can be established through wickedness, but the righteous cannot be uprooted," which is the imagery of the King James Version translation as well. It's like a root, you know. I guess a root can be uprooted now with tractors and machinery, but in that times,
Yeah.
how challenging it is to pull a root out. I mean, I'm sure you can do it.
Are we saying that a root is established?
I
Are we
would
saying,
say in the contrast that's being put here, it would appear so.
I guess that's where I'm struggling, right? Like, I'm not seeing these as contrasting statements. I'm seeing them as potentially related statements, but they're not opposing each other, right? And maybe it was the mindset that I was in when I was reading it. And I think maybe I was looking for that stark contrast and I'm not seeing it. Like,
You might be right. They're not mutually exclusive necessarily.
but the way they're being presented, it's like a one or the other. And I think I started to churn. Actually, I know I started to churn because I was just like,
Well,
mm,
think of this verse in particular. Now that I see the root idea, um, think of it more as a house that's built on sand versus a house that's built on a firmer foundation. Um, I think this contrast is similar to that. You know, the guy who built his house on the sand, when the storm came, it doesn't last. So the house is not established. The house is built on the firm foundation. It's like a tree that plants deep roots. It's not easily going to come up. Can it come up? Absolutely, possibly, if you really, really work at it. But it's almost firmly established because unless you really go about trying to dig that tree up and go about that effort, that tree is not easily moved. And I think it's the contrast of the righteous being like a tree planted, because that's also Psalm 1,
Mhm.
and the wicked being like the chaff that the wind drives away, right? A chaff is not established anywhere. It doesn't take permanence. It doesn't grow. It doesn't, root. As the wind blows, it is wherever. And I think that kind of imagery is what this verse might be trying to, 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 to give a contrast towards that rooting.
um, I guess if I were to change the lens by which I'm reading this, the more that we're talking about it, I think the lens that I was reading it from was a very earthly lens, and this is not an earthly thing that's being discussed here, in my opinion. And so, changing lens, I can see where some of this is coming from. Not all, but some. Um,
Let's go through another one then.
Jared, it's almost like what we were talking about earlier with people's. Shuki said what somebody said they don't feel safe around you or something.
yeah,
So it's almost like they just wherever the wind blows, one day they're Republican, next Democrat, then whatever, then whatever. Then it's like whatever seems reasonable or whatever placates them in a moment, that's what they run with. But they're not really like studying to understand, okay, I can have this perspective, this is why I see this way, this is why I stay. It's kind of just like, what was that expression? Wishy washy.
Mm-hmm. It, so, like, 18. There is one whose harsh words are like sword thrust, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Lies, propaganda. The tongue of the wise can be a sword thrust just the same.
Give me that one again.
18.
Mm.
Right, but it didn't say it wouldn't be just a short thrust. It would bring healing. So I mean, there are things God might call you stupid, but it will be to bring healing.
No, but it says brings healing, not would bring healing.
Right, but
But what I'm saying is the way that it's as if
healing here isn't about you feeling good about it necessarily. I mean, it's just like if we're friends, Shrika, and you realize I have some addictive or disassociative behavior, and you call me on my BS, in that moment I'm not gonna feel good about it. But it's going to do a work to heal me of the symptom, not the symptom, the underlying illness that is causing me to
I
take that
don't
part that is gonna destroy me, right?
I don't disagree. I'm thinking if you're in a certain mindset or even a beginner reader, that would lead you to believe that it's not going to hurt.
Mm.
And
Maybe.
I think it ties in nicely to the conversation because it comes back to again, what is our perspective of this God that is doing these things or his disciples that are doing these things? If it's that, it'll all be nice, namby pamby, feel good, hallelujah, Jesus, or shamadamada, or if that's stuff that's gonna
Yeah, but when you use words like but, and in some cases they use and, like and is a continuation of a thought, but is a contrast. The way it's written here, when you say but, it's healing as if I'm not going to feel it. You're
right,
still going to feel it. And it may not
be a good
be
feeling.
years down the
Yep.
line before you realize you're healed.
Yep.
This, I think, again, where I was mentally, and if I'm a new reader, it doesn't really add up and it gives you a falsified idea, which if I wanted to be an extremist, I could run with and say, like, oh, I don't believe in God because, I mean, if he really loves us, why would he kill us?
Yeah. Or hell
Right?
can't
Well,
exist because God will never make us suffer like that, right? So
Right, right. Like, you know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Because of the way this is written.
So I'm thinking about I'm thinking about you, Sharika, and when you go under the knife for surgery, are you cut with a sharp instrument? And does that sharp instrument bring healing?
Am I cut with a sharp instrument? I'm told. I've asked them to record it
Should be.
and they won't record it for me. So
But it's your understanding that a scalpel
yeah,
is
let's
used.
assume that's what's happening. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does the scalpel bring healing? No.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh, okay. Is it an instrument of healing?
It's it's a pathway for healing, right? Like the scalpel itself doesn't heal me.
No, it doesn't.
But you realize that that is how Jesus is referred to as speaking, right? Even when he says, his words are like a sword that cut both ways and divide. He it's almost like that's his speak, right? So in his, I don't know if I could be so facetious, but it's almost like in his mind, what I'm using to cut out the bad stuff is what is actually healing.
Yeah, and I guess it just depends on my posture. Like I could have just woke up that Sabbath in a mean mood, right? And just been like very like I have my moments where I'm just like, meh. And I'm sure God rolls his eyes like you again. Here we go, right? But I think this is it's a posture chapter. Because I could look at it from the perspective of you're not telling me that one is better than the other. You're telling me a little bit about one and leading me to believe something about the
About
other.
the other.
Right? Like,
So think about this. The point of Proverbs is wisdom, and wisdom is the skillful application of knowledge and experience. So what you have here, someone speaking their experience, giving it to you, and then you leverage this information to apply it to your context. So if I have a tongue and my words are thoughtless, I can cause injury like a sword. But if I am wise, my tongue can offer healing.
no, it can cause injury because the scalpel still injures me, but it's injury for the
purpose of
beginnings
healing.
of healing.
Both. It could do both. Yeah, absolutely. Even if the tongue cuts from the wise, it's a healing cut.
Yeah. But it can also just
Yeah.
be,
Because a sword is not a healing cut. A
Yeah.
sword is not necessarily. It can be, but typically it's a weapon of, it's in this context and these times. What do people use swords for? Then it's not a tool necessarily.
I mean,
Jared, to your point, it can bring heal.
I mean,
It can just be a case where you can just use your tongue to bring, to bring healing. I mean, in all the years with Water for the Thirsty, that's something you do, where we might start off with opposing views, but you would use your words in a way to get us to appreciate different perspectives and be like, oh yeah, okay, I could see that. I mean, I just think of how many times, at least for me, I might start off very strongly persuaded of one thing. We'll have a discussion, then I realize, oh, yeah, that does make sense. Now, if you were beating me over the head with it or belligerent about it, that would probably just cause me to, want to reinforce my perception as opposed to being open to, oh yeah, this different perspective might make sense, right? So I could
Right.
kind of see the parallels of how words could just be, or the tongue could be used to do either, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right. Absolutely.
I like to add. I mean, I'm thinking about from a relational standpoint. There are times when friends and family members, or shoot, maybe even just a stranger, they can give you some criticisms, but it's actually something that could be used to challenge you to, because you could be better. I think I could use that in, terms of maybe fitness, but I also thought about uh, something that I heard Andre 3000 talk about. um you know he's sitting there writing his rhymes, and he's telling his boy his bars, like he's giving him his rhymes, and he's like, dude just got up and just left.
Wow.
Basically tell him like it
It
was
was trash.
it's like, you need to go back to the drawing board. I mean, I think that's hurtful, right? But he probably thought, man, I worked hard on this. It was good. I thought it was good, but at least he thought it was good. But his friend was telling him like, nah, man, you could do better than that. Like, you can. So and when you guys are talking, I'm thinking about those times that also, what I would assume that can be painful or hurtful or a little discomforting in a moment. Maybe you've been working hard on trying to get in shape, lose weight, whatever the case is, and you may have somebody that comes along, a trainer or just someone else that may be a little bit more knowledgeable or advancing than you are, and they can sit there and offer some kind of critique, maybe tell you all of that effort that you put in wasn't, you weren't going hard enough or whatever the case is, and that might really be something that would throw you off, maybe make you want to quit or make you feel as though you don't want to keep going. But in a sense, that person is telling you those things because they know that you can even perform at a higher level.
Good. Sorry, I saw some comments coming from the Shamanamana. That was something someone had said earlier that she was coming on with. If Solomon was considered a wise man, why would we believe he was coming from a perspective other than healthy, happy, and whole? The wisest man giving wisdom. This is a good question. So, and Jerry, I don't know if this points to that whole idea of God that we have. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, and the serpent told them, "If you eat the fruit, you will be like God, knowing good and evil." There's this association that we have with God. It's always happy, healthy, and whole. But the reality of the life and the experience is not just that. And so the perspective is not necessarily happy, healthy, whole, but here's how you can get closer to that.
Yep.
So the wisdom is about the realities that now allow you to leverage the realities to get closer to or stay within the space of happy, healthy, whole.
And I think for Solomon in particular, having spent, I don't know how many years it was straight up wilding out. He's coming
Correct.
back to perspective. So he's almost like, I'm an authority on this because I've been doing it right. And the only regret I have is the fact that I wasn't always doing it right. Right. I was out there wilding out. There was nothing I denied myself, and I can tell you it's all trash. If you want to go figure out for yourself, it's all trash. I'm gonna see for myself. Carry on smartly, but I can tell you, this way is better.
Correct. I think he had the wisest mind giving wisdom. Absolutely. He was doing that. But I just think sometimes wisdom is the balance of perspectives and the information about both sides so that you
Yep.
can make the smarter choice.
Yeah.
And
Especially Jared, when it isn't just a case of right or wrong, good or bad. Now it's good, better, and best. Now you definitely need wisdom because sometimes what is best in the moment might be a thing that just doesn't really, you don't like, it isn't comfortable, and it don't make sense, right? But
dip
that's the best
7
thing.
pounds in the dirty water with your exposed skin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how does that even make
that's not wise at all. You're going to get an infection going in that water.
correct?
Yeah, Jerry, is Jesus tell you, you have a big rash, and Jesus say, go dip 7 times in the beatum.
Yeah. Walk around a city with concrete walls that, as high as they are wide, and they will just fall. Really? And I'm sure there was some scientists among the Levites who are like, physically, and when we look at whatever, this can't happen. Sure enough.
Sure enough.
Uh,
But I like that that you pointed out, Jerry, that he went and he lived these things so that it's experience. It's experiential. It's not just theory.
what's scary to me though? Well, I don't know if scary is the word, but all of us think we will be the exception. We will be the one person who could do something and have a different outcome. And then you look at all these people who've done these things before us, and most of them wise up and they're like, yeah, don't ever do that. But then we're all like, I'm gonna see for myself.
I will tell you this: I have never been that person. I don't need to learn no lesson that you already taught. It's all right. You told me that don't work. Sound good to me.
Bless your heart.
I don't know. However, the other side is true though. If you told me you did it, now I have an unrealistic belief that it can be done.
Correct.
And that might be worse than the wanting to learn the opposite on your own.
Mm-hmm. But you see again, and that's what I think a lot of people miss. These both things can be true.
Mm-hmm.
There's objective truth, but more than one thing can be true at any
At the
given
same
time.
time. Absolutely.
And I think people conflate.
Yep, that's very true. He saw and experienced all of what he wrote. Absolutely. So I'm reading this again. The words of thoughtless people cut like swords, but the tongue of wise people brings healing. And I'm seeing it as a contrast of swords bring injury, and then healing is a contrast to that. Thoughtlessness can cause injury. Wise words, even if they cut, as Courtney was saying, can provide healing. Like you have a big thing on your hand and I have to cut it to relieve all the pus. That.
But I think they both require a level of knowledge on the recipient side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's potentially what we're the outlook that we're not paying attention, or I wasn't paying attention to, right? Like someone who experiences it has to know, that was for harm, or someone who experiences it has to know, that was for truth. The person who's giving it probably isn't even aware of the motive behind it.
Maybe, but it could also be reflective for the individual who's giving. Like, so if I know that there's a chance that when I'm thoughtless with my words, it can bring injury, now I'm a little bit more careful with my words.
That's if you realize you're being thoughtless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's a level of self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody, I'm sure that I've said things. Let's even go back to the conversation I had about being fat, right? I may have said that to someone, and that would have been thoughtless depending on who it is. Like, I didn't give it enough thought to be like, yo, you're not allowed to call me anything if you're bigger than me. That's that, right? And that could hurt somebody's feelings, and that could be very thoughtless of me. But I'm not even aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm only aware of the fact that you're being a jerk. And therefore, I'm just...
Correct.
Two things just popped in my head. One, to your point, Shrika, so there needs to be wisdom both on the part of the person who's seeing it and wisdom on the part of the person who's potentially receiving it, right? Because if either is skewed, then this gets wonky.
Correct.
The other thing is,
Because
again, to your point,
becomes a sword in that case.
correct.
Mhm.
Again, to your point about it not necessarily being opposites, I'm seeing it almost like a play and counterplay of intention and direction. So you could intend something to be a particular way and it have a completely different outcome.
Correct.
Because you're not applying wisdom. Or you can make a choice to say, you know what, I'm going to set a general direction. Because if my direction is, okay, I'll use a local example, right? It's very unlikely I'm going to head in a southerly direction and not end up in San Fernando, right? And I think sometimes what we do is we have a particular intention, but we're not setting the direction to end up in the place that we want to end up, right? So we just miss the mark. And so it's almost like Solomon is saying, all right, here's what. You can do this just kind of willy-nilly without thought or whatnot, or you can set a direction of healing. Yes, your words may be abrasive at first. Yes, they may cut, but you will eventually end up in a place of healing if that's the direction you're heading.
Yeah. I think it's to guide the speaker to be more intentional about his words, or to be mindful of how he or she speaks.
I think it also is be mindful of the posture you have when you receive something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
And I think that is way more, in my opinion, more important than who said it to me. What posture am I in when I receive it? How do I regard that person? Am I going to make me uncomfortable? Like, I had a couple of instances over the last couple of days, and I was talking to Kendrick, and I was like, he was like, it just doesn't matter. And I was just like, but it does. And he's like, but it doesn't. He's like, I was like, but it does. And he's like, but it doesn't. Like, just imagine a Kendrick and Sharika interaction. It just gets louder, right? And I slept on it, and I came back to him. I was like, you're right. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But in the moment, it did matter, right? Like, and you have to be back to the posture to be like, does it? And I wasn't in a position to receive from him, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, but it does, right? And
everybody hearing the rock singing in their head right now?
It doesn't matter, right?
I thought it was just me.
Damn jabroni. Yeah.
But I think in so many ways that's also probably the relationship between like God and human. When we're like, yo, this matters. He's like, but it doesn't matter. And it's like, but it matters. Like, but it doesn't matter. Like, you didn't strike down my enemy, but it doesn't matter. You watch me, but it doesn't matter. But it does matter. Like, and it's like, but no, really, it doesn't. Like,
and then it works the reverse. It's a sheep or a goat. No, it's sheep or fruit. It doesn't really matter. No, but it does matter.
But it does, right? Like,
But it
Yeah.
does matter.
Yep.
and having, and I think that all boils down to the relationship you have with somebody, right? Like, you'll know when it matters based on the way their tone changes, or like, I'm sure there's a running joke. Like when I used to work with Jared, and people hear me say, "So what we not gonna do?" Okay, now we in a different conversation, right? Like this matters, right? Like it doesn't matter if I'm laughing. As soon as I get so what we not? So what we're not gonna do? You would think that that's me calming down. No, that's me downshifting, right? Before I take off, right? And so back to relationship, being cognizant of these cues when and when you're not in relationship, realizing that it doesn't matter, right? Like it really doesn't matter what I think of this and this if you and I just aren't in relationship, and you in a position
That is a golden nugget right there.
Ooh.
to
Say
make
it again.
Huh?
No, I was telling Sharika to say it again.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I'm saying. Something I said something along the lines of like, it doesn't matter if you and I aren't in a relationship for it to make a difference.
I'm gonna let that soak. Yeah. Yep. And I think it's actually something that is a trap that a lot of us who believe in God fall into, because we think, there are literally times God will share something with me about somebody else, and He's like, "I'm saying this to you so you know how to interact with them. I'm not saying it to you so you can go say anything to them." I'm like, oh, because we just assume because we know something, I just need to roll up and tell Shrika X or Y. And God is like, nah, you don't have a relationship with her, so why do it?
And mind your business.
Yes, precisely.
Mind your business.
But there are people who would think, well, it's my business to tell you. No, it's not. No, it's really not. It's not.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
Or it's not God's business to tell me, and I don't mean that, God, because I really want like a Zechariah 1-3. I ain't gonna hold you, but in some cases, it's not. Sure, it doesn't matter. It does, but it really doesn't, right? Like it doesn't in the grand scheme. Not even in the grand scheme. Just because I said it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
When we think about it, that's what even made the disciples effective, because, well, Jesus and disciples, they would form relationships. So, I mean, what he had to say to Zacchaeus or Nicodemus was through relationship. Because if it was just random, they would have looked at him like, what?
Mind your business.
Mind your business.
I'm in a tree waiting for my homie. Shut up.
Isn't it funny, though, when we don't have the relationship, we say these things and we're upset with God because it's like, well, I expected a different outcome. Well, this person doesn't know you from Adam or Eve, but you expect them to somehow just it's like, even now there are people who might say, hey, can you coach me or mentor me with something? And I always ask the question, do you want my advice on this, or do you want my opinion? I want to make sure disclaimer, I'm not just going to interject my advice or opinion first.
I do better. I might call you and be like, yo, you got a minute? I'm going to let my bars off. You know what that means? I just need to rap. I don't need you to give me no opinion. I need to get my bars off.
There you go.
And thank you. I appreciate it. Talk to you later. Like, I did that to somebody today. I said, I need 5 minutes to rattle. They're like, but you can't let it. I said, I never told you I was going to do anything about it. I just need to get off my chest so I can go on with my day. Thank you. Talk to you later. I don't need an opinion, right? Like, yep. But that's a relationship, to your point. Like, when you ask, do you want my opinion? It's also my responsibility to say to you, I don't really want an opinion. I just want to ramble, right? Like, I just want to talk. And I wonder if that level of going back to your original question of like the coddling and things of that nature, right? Like, I think God allows for the world for you to express how you feel, but also be corrected. Like, you can be angry, but do not sin. Yeah. Like, don't disrespect me. Or like Job,
Jeremiah,
right? Jeremiah, Job, all of y'all can feel how y'all feel.
Jonah,
yeah.
Jesus. right? Like
even,
I feel you.
even David, right? You saw some of those prayers David would pray.
Yes.
That his enemies, their loins be infested with worms and all sorts of craziness. And
Yes.
God let him rattle. And when he was done, David and I was like, okay, but I will humble myself and let God be God, and I will come in your presence and pray. But he let him rattle.
But he let him go. He let him get his bars, right? And I wonder if humans would be better off if we just let each other get our bars off.
Already.
If we
love
let each
it.
other get our bars off, but I think there's as you pointed out, there has to be an understanding that that's what's taking place, because if you don't have that understanding, then your words become like swords. Can become like swords.
Mhm.
It can. It won't. It's not necessarily that, but it can.
It can either way, if I'm being
Yep.
quite frank. Right? Like, Jared, you might say, Sharika, tell me how you feel. And I might be like, is that really what you want? Be like, yeah.
It's about to get dusty.
And
then
then
all of a sudden,
I have all these chops on my chest, like like if you was playing was that Fruit Ninja?
right? But now you and your feelings. And I would be like, what's the problem? You'd be like, yo, Sharika hurt my feelings. I asked you if you really wanted how I feel. I didn't know that's how you really. I asked you, right? Like, so there's this weird conundrum, and it's also biblical. Like, God, I want this. No, you don't. Yes, I do. No, you don't.
You don't.
Like, it's like when he says, like, lead me not into temptation. This ain't what you want. Like,
Yeah.
like,
You don't want that smoke?
don't do this. Like,
Mhm.
but
This
are
is
we in a
actively
position?
avoided. Mhm.
We're not. Most time, we're not really ready for what we say we want.
Nope. Because we don't know what it
Like they
involves.
say always.
We don't know what it involves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I don't pray for stuff. See, back to where we at. There it is.
Every blessing has a backside, right? So, like, I remember God telling me, because there's some stuff I prayed for, and I'm like, why are you? I would feel slighted. I'd be like, why are you withholding this from me? And he's like, it's not the thing I'm withholding from you. I'm making sure you're strong enough for what comes on the flip side of that thing. Because every good has a flip side. So I just want to make sure you can carry the burden of the flip side. I was like,
Them shoes are all heavy. You have enough strength in your legs.
yeah.
So, that's so horrible. I don't like this. One,
What?
I'm still struggling with asking God for stuff, right? Because I don't like being I don't like being rejected. That's that's a flaw of mine. When you say there's a backside to it, I'm definitely not asking now because I ain't trying to experience none of that stuff. Like, how do you get past that?
I mean, think about it, Sharika. I have these young boys here who's like, Daddy, I want a pet. Can we go to Petco? I'm like, do you know what's going to require of you if you get this pet? If you get this pet, I'm not walking it, I'm not feeding it, I'm not cleaning the thing. Are you ready for this pet? Because this pet is going to be nice and furry, but it's going to come with all of this. And so, I mean, we understand that. And
Jared, if I could put my 12-year-old on blast, my now 12-year-old, every creature she sees, she wants to bring one home, right? Whatever it is, turtle, horses, rabbits, whatever, right? And I remember her first rabbit, when the rabbit died, she's like, she didn't think this would happen. Yeah, it kind of does with animals. Sometimes they just, but they like, and I'm not knocking kids because even as adults we're the same way. We like the idea of a thing, and we don't appreciate everything that
comes with it.
Yeah, but then there's that thin line between God could be withholding something from you, waiting for you to ask as a sign of faith versus
him waiting for you to be prepared for the backside.
Right.
And this is why Solomon says, in all you're getting, get wisdom, right? Because you need wisdom to understand which it is and act accordingly.
No.
Lots of times when I thought God was withholding stuff from me, and then I realized, dude was waiting on me to be able to. Oh, okay.
No.
Maybe if you change your perspective a little bit, you say, "Oh, okay, you want that? Well, to get that, we have to. It'll take us about 8-9 months to get you ready for that. So yes, I'm gonna give it to you, but it's
How
gonna take a
comes
while
preparation?
because it's gonna take a while, and depending on how long you take, it may take a little bit longer. But we had to go through this process to get you ready for that. We have to do some training. Or you want to run a marathon? You can't just pick up and run a marathon tomorrow. You need to look for one that's a year out and then begin training to run this marathon. You know.
Yep.
We're talking about Proverbs 12, Lorraine, and how I was at odds with it, and then I realized that I was reading it from the wrong perspective.
The last verse we read was verse 18, Proverbs 12:18.
Another I saw another problematic, well, not problematic one, another one that could come across, like I think it's 21, where it says, "No ill befalls the righteous,
Yeah, that part.
but the wicked are filled with trouble." And it's like,
That's not true.
everybody gets filled, because Solomon later on says, time and chance happening to both of them, right?
Correct.
So again, you have to contextualize it, otherwise you're gonna be like, okay, so if something happens to me that's ill, that means I'm not righteous. But
Yeah.
Which is the basis for why Job had the issue with his friend and them.
Correct. Because they was reading this.
See, like this.
The Bible says no harm comes to the godly people. You just
Yeah.
lost all your money and your children, and you have boils on your head.
Correct.
You sound
What are
like
you
you're gonna have
saying?
all the trouble that you can handle, and that's what the Word of God says. I'm reading it right out of here, and you're
Yep.
telling me it's not, but the Bible says, yeah, that's what Job's friend was doing.
Right here.
Right here, look at right there. That's you. You see you in the Bible. It's a mirror. The
Ew.
Bible is a mirror.
Yep.
Our friend. Look.
Oh my, that's that. They were just being them, them typical church elders or leaders who like, yeah, the word says, look, it says here what 27. Whoever is slothful will not roast his game. And I'm thinking, that's what was it, Jacob and Esau, right?
Yeah.
He ain't did nothing, but he got the brother's blessing, and it's like, well, yeah. Oh,
Or where is it? Where's my other favorite? The whole thing is trash.
it's just the lens. It's just the lens.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, in this time, I guess wherever I was on that good Sabbath morning, I wasn't. So I appreciate y'all entertaining me, because I was just like, I'm gonna throw Proverbs away the way I throw away Psalms in like 2 minutes if this continues on.
And this is wisdom literature, right? Wow.
It requires a little bit of perspective and unpacking.
You know what? You know what this shows me though, Jared. When God says spiritual things are spiritually discerned, because they are. You can't read this just on the surface and be like, trash.
Which leads me to my question. It's coming out of
Let me go get some water. I'm listening.
Proverbs 2. It's coming out of Proverbs 2. And I think you just set it up very nicely there, Jerry. Courtney, if you could read that, that'd be great when Sharika comes back. Or while Sharika's coming back, because I'm sure she could hear us where she's gone. Proverbs 2:1-6.
Which version are we reading, Jared?
Any matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Courtney's going to read one. You could read another. I mean, follow along in another. I don't have a preference.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna read it amplified because I'm trying to change the version and it's not moving. So,
Yeah.
all right. My son, if you will receive my words and treasure my commandments within you, so that your ear is attentive to skillful and godly wisdom, and apply your heart to understanding, seeking it conscientiously and striving for it eagerly. Yes, if you cry out for insight and lift up your voice for understanding, if you seek skillful and godly wisdom as you would silver and search for her as you would hidden treasures, then you will understand the reverent fear of the Lord, that is, worshiping him and regarding him as truly awesome, and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives skillful and godly wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding.
Why do we have to work so hard to get to know God? Why is so much effort necessary? That's a lot of work.
Mm.
Why does it require so much work?
Mm.
Why can't it just be convenient and easy?
Probably because we sinned. You know, that part.
You think it'll be easier if we didn't sin?
I think so.
I believe.
I think so.
Anything important requires effort. You can't- I don't think that's too hard.
You don't think
Mm.
You don't
searching
think it's
for
hard to
treasure
get
is
to know
hard?
God?
Look for
No, he's saying why is it hard? Why does it require so much effort? I'm like, anything that's important
Oh,
requires effort.
I
yeah.
don't know
Why?
if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree.
So why though?
Yeah, the question is why.
I don't even know if I agree that it require anything that's important requires effort.
So your relationships don't work if you don't put effort in it. If you think you're just gonna slide by and just, oh yeah, everything's gonna work out just fine. My bare minimum is gonna, it won't work. It never works.
I can't. There's some relationships that I feel are just naturally easy.
So no effort needed. It just
I think me wake up in the morning is effort, but I think anything you do is effort. But what I'm saying is for it to feel effort, yeah, like it just.
But that's like marriage. Why isn't marriage easy?
I don't know. That's why I haven't done it.
So, marriage, I can understand why marriage is a little more challenging because people are inherently selfish. When you get two selfish people in a space, it's work to come out of that selfishness for each individual. So that, and that's true, in any kind of relationship, especially in marriage, but in any kind of relationship.
Mhm.
But I was asking more about, this look as call out for, let your ears listen to wisdom, apply your heart to understanding, call out to the ability to be wise, cry out for understanding, look for it as you'd look for silver, search as it is you would search for hidden treasure, then you'll understand. Like, you have to go through all of these layers of effort before you even get in there. Like, if you just kind of, take a passing glance, you're not going to find it. It just requires so much effort. And I was curious as to what's the why, what's the logic behind requiring so much effort.
Mm.
I mean,
Why couldn't
so
it be more accessible? I guess why isn't getting out more accessible?
This is Proverbs 2, you said, right?
Proverbs 2:1-6, yes.
I think the emphasis is that wisdom is valuable, right? You don't just wake up one morning and just without effort know how to move and do and be. Like, there's just like you don't find gold walking around the streets just laying all around. Like, some stuff there has to be effort put in to find it. It's not just because it won't do everybody any good. So only those who really want it will actually find it.
I think some things come naturally easy though, Lorraine. Like it's like some people are born talented and they don't have to put in effort to maximize their talent. They might have to be disciplined in maintaining the talent, but there's no effort in the talent, right? Like, and I think what I'm reading here, there's a difference between the discipline needed to get to know God and the effort needed to get to know God. And this feels like, Jared said, why is this so hard? Like,
Well, this looks like discipline because talent is not wisdom, though, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but verse 4, look for it as you would look for silver. That's
silver.
not discipline. That's hard. So
Yeah.
silver is a hard thing to mine, to dig out, to purify.
Mm.
And then search as for it as you would hidden treasure. Hidden treasures, you don't just, let me just go in my backyard and pick one. It's just
You gotta study the treasures to know what you're looking for and all that extra stuff.
and then you gotta dig it out.
that's also like that's like I asked a question too. Why Jesus spoke in parables, like, or why did he not just say what he meant when he meant it instead of just making it a little complicated?
Why isn't it more accessible? Because that's what verse 5 says, then you'll understand how to have respect for the Lord, you will find out how to know God. Like knowledge of God is requires a lot of effort. I was curious as to
Yeah.
why. I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't. I was just curious as why. What
Mm.
Gerald says, it's about focus, not letting things distract you from your search. Okay.
That's an what's his name? Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
Gerald, it's interesting. I'm one of those people, and this is a negative thing about me. If it's too much work, I ain't doing it.
Come on now.
No, I'm just being honest. Like, I realize like I haven't mastered certain things because I realize it's taking me too long to figure it out. Like if it's not like if I can't figure out a natural knack towards it, like it's like, why am I doing this? Like I've always I've always like certain things I'm just like, yeah, it's like I tell people I don't compete in sports that I don't believe I'm gonna win.
Okay.
You know how some people are just naturally competitive? It's like I'm not. Oh, I'm glad we're on the same page, right? Like if I'm not getting better, I'm not doing this. Like it's just like it's like
as I'm listening to you talk, I'm wondering. I wonder if the key is in the idea of treasure. The treasure is valuable because it's rare and requires so much effort to find that that's what now causes people to prize it. If it was common like grass, people take it for granted because they could just, go out anywhere and get it. And so I'm wondering if the scarcity and the effort that it takes to unearth it is what creates value for it. I'm just wondering out loud now.
And I think it all depends on the person, right? Like I don't maybe this is I'm having a realistic moment. Maybe so many things have happened in my life because the Lord knows that if I had to seek too hard, I would not look.
All right. But all right. So
But
how do people look for money? I was just say, or what will they not do to get rich?
Every dog by the dog by getting rich.
it all depends on the person, right? Like I always say,
All right,
everybody
so
has
if you
a
talk about
price.
yourself, like,
For me,
yeah,
I told you everybody has a price, right? Like, I don't think y'all understand. I'll
I'm
be
just
like,
saying.
let's be real here. Like, are we keeping it real with the people? Like, we all have a price, right?
I think you have an unwary diligence, like to get that paper.
I have a unwearying diligence towards a life of luxury and leisure.
Okay. All right. So if you seek God with that same, just turn it to Him. That's
She would have
that's
to
the exact way.
she'd have to value him like that to do it.
Right.
Not only that, I would have to be gaining along the way.
She said she has to win.
Right? Like I have to
Ah.
win along the way. Like there isn't 0 to a milli. It's like 0 to 1,000 to 5,000 to 10. Like I need those mile markers, right? I don't know why, but and that's
Right.
what, and I wasn't trying to be like joking. I really wonder if like my life is so active with Christ that he's like, this chick needs these mile markers because I'm the type of person to be like, oh, this isn't, I'm not winning. Great. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. Right. Like I've told people this, man, I believe it. If I get to the age of 50 and I haven't mastered the idea of luxury and leisure, I'm moving Jamaica and I'm tilling the land. I'm not doing this anymore. Like I'm over it.
But even all right, so even tilling the land, that's an undertaking right there. That's going to require some kind of faith, patience, and even though you have those expectations, you're going
And
to
like the
have
way this world hot
disappointments,
outside,
And I'm gonna give you a time
delays.
period by which I till, and if the till don't work, I'm on something else.
Because like Jared shared with the group, I think a while ago, you were talking about working on your lawn. How that is crazy. That's just growing grass. It's
yeah.
it's not easy. You think, oh yeah, just throw the seeds out there and this is going to do
Doesn't
the thing.
work, right?
Nah.
I feel you, and I want to say I started June like, yo, I'm gonna make sure my grass stay green, and
Right.
then couple of hot days in a row, and I realize no matter what I do, it's still gonna get burnt. And guess what? We got burnt grass. Like it is what it like.
I saw him. I have to say, I was thinking, well, maybe if I had, just as it was getting hot, started just going out and running the sprinkler a little bit every day, I might have saved my grass, because my whole grass there, everything broke. Like I, except a little place where it has shade in the trees, it have a little bit of grass under there. But I was wondering, maybe if I just, nah, what you saying is, it probably would have died anyway.
Anyway. But I will say this: the 4 people on this call have very different perspectives, right? Like including Gerald, including D. But I think D more on my side. I ain't gonna hold y'all. But that's why like relationship with God is so one-on-one. Because if you following me and D, this ain't gonna work the way y'all think it's gonna work. Like, you know, like, and even me like telling you, Courtney, like it's luxury and leisure. It's not even grass is brown all day long, right? Like, and it's like even correcting you, Courtney, like saying like it's not the money, it's the leisure. Like I can get to the leisure through being a kingpin, a queen pin, moving the right way, moving the wrong way. Like I can just get there.
Right.
I do admire people who have that level of like stamina, that it's like, yo, I really want this, like marathon runners. Like I want to keep going. And I think God is going to, he talks to them differently than he talks to me.
So I think,
Go ahead, Lauren, go ahead.
no, to add to what Shuka's saying about each of us being different. So I think for me, very flawed human being, I love knowledge. Like I love learning. And I'm constantly trying to seek understanding in all areas. Not saying I get it easily. Sometimes it requires work. Sometimes it hurts to learn some of the things that are valuable. So I think because I'm, like I said, tune your ear to wisdom, I'm already tilted that way. So it's effort, but it's not as much effort because I'm a curious person leaning that direction.
But enjoyable effort.
Right. Well, sometimes it sucks, but then I always try to, sometimes the effort is not my effort, it's his effort, so that his effort sucks. And so then I have to like, I'll whine, I'll complain, I'll cry, I'll bawl, I'll lay prostrate, whatever the case may be. And then it's like a cycle for me. Like, and then I come on the other end and be like, okay, what was I supposed to learn from this? What was I supposed to understand about you from this? And some stuff I still don't understand. And so I'm still doing the searching and seeking and hoping I can find it quickly.
I got you. Anybody ever heard of Canada Goose jacket?
Yeah.
You know what the price on those are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why the price on those things so high?
This is warm.
And that made me that the Canada Goose is my reference for the thought that came to mind as Lorraine and Sharika was talking. I wonder if God is establishing his value. Like I think I am worth I am worth this. And if you want me, you shell out that
but then we do that with each other. Right? Like we do that in relationships, platonic, romantic. The boundaries you set, the standard that you set. I'm worth X. Meet me there or don't. The value doesn't, but not only that, my value doesn't change. Like there's a book that I've been reading, and I mean been reading for at least the last 12 months.
Oh wow.
because it's just a heavy read. It's called like Luxury Strategies. I've told everybody about it. And it talks about the difference between luxury and premium. And it's basically saying how luxury is not proportional to price. It's a standard by which society tries to reach and emulate, versus premium is proportional to price and societal norms. And it's like everyone's using the word luxury, and most people do not have or have ever experienced luxury. And like you saying that, it's like God's like, I am luxurious. Regardless of what's going on with you peasants, I am a statue to be achieved. I do not move, right? Like, for instance, one of the values you have to do is like your manufacturing facility must have not changed um, countries from the beginning of existence. Once you move the country, you're no longer luxury, right?
Wow.
Right? It's very deep. That makes me not use the word the same, but like God, I have been the same since I started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you know, like
This is my price, no matter what. So,
my price is my price, and you are all going to strive to be like me. Why? I made you.
you should want to
Right.
say.
So I truly believe, and this is my like heart on heart opinion, I think everyone has that moment where they ask themselves, is it worth it? But you have that innate desire to strive for it. You have to have that one-on-one, is it worth it?
Hmm.
And I think it happens every 5 to 10 years that you reevaluate.
Yeah, when you decide you're going and buy that Canada Goose jacket, you're saying yes, it is worth it.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when money running low, you ask yourself, man, should I have bought that jacket?
Is it worth it?
All right,
Hey,
like
if you live in certain places, absolutely you go. Like I talked to my partner, he bought one, but he said he bought one many years ago, and he showed me the prices. I'm like, oh, he said, partner, when I put on this jacket, I could go outside bareback. I can go outside there. Like, just as I don't have to layer up. I don't have to put on nothing. Just the coat.
it's the coat.
Worth every penny.
I don't know if people would be honest enough to admit it, but I definitely think like every 5 to 10 years you reevaluate the decisions that you've made, including your spiritual decisions.
Absolutely.
Sometimes sooner if you get a real hit by something, you're like, wait a minute.
That's for me, every 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
Yeah. What are we doing? What are we doing? Right? Like, and not in a sinful way. Just
Right,
like,
right.
so we really like
Are we still doing this?
still doing this? Like someone, there's a meme on social media and they're like, I'm really out here just trusting God. Like that's all I'm doing. Like, is this real? And it resonates with my soul. Are we really just out here trusting God?
That's big. The price is the price. How bad do you want it? Do you want it? And I guess if you're willing to pay the price, I then know that you want it, and then I engage differently because you were willing to pay the price.
And you're also amongst the elite, right? Some may say that I have a slight issue with my handbags collections, right? However, when certain bags enter the scene, I get treated differently. Life starts to change. You're amongst a group of people that's a little different. And I say that in a spiritual sense. You're amongst a group of people that are a little different. Life starts to change. May not be the way you want it to change, but it starts to change.
It sure does.
Right? And then there's also these experiences that only you and those people in this elite group can actually talk about, relate to, and be able to even comment on. And there are also like these badges of honors. Like you see people like OB, like for all those who've never sat down and had a conversation with OB, I feel bad for y'all because like he has stories for days, right? Like
He does.
and it's just like, yo, my God, you really been out here living. good, bad, or indifferent. He's just been out here living. And I think like when you are in this group and I think that's what it really means to have testimonies. Like you're sharing these stories for days and we're all like, word.
Right. Right. Okay. I get it. I get it. You set your price, you set your value, and you determine who thinks you're valuable enough to pay the price.
Because everybody has a price.
Yeah. And if someone is willing to pay your said price, then you reward them and honor them for seeing, recognizing, or finding you valuable enough, for perceiving that. Ooh, that's that perception of intrinsic value, right?
And we all value different things.
And not even just that. He valued us first.
Correct.
He didn't it wasn't that way first. He was like, look, I think do you think I'm important? Because I think y'all are important.
Because if he was easy, people may not value him, and you just take it for granted. Yeah. And we are so ripe to do that as people. We take a whole lot of things for granted. That's why they say you can't miss the water. You don't miss the water till the well runs dry. We just take water for granted. Even water.
We do, but I also think that's okay.
You think so?
I think there's a level of safety in taking something for granted.
What? Unpack that for me, please.
Right.
There's one of them moments I would clip a video and then post it online because I'm like, I think there's a bit of safety in taking something for granted. You help me.
The safety part is the part I'm trying to understand.
So hear me out. When I had, like, for example, when I had my break-in, right? And I didn't go into the apartment until Din and Jared was like, I'm going to go get your stuff. There was a level of safety I took for granted, literally. I'm taking for granted what they can provide. And there's a level of safety in that. There's no guarantee that I'm any safer with them or without them. But in my head, I feel safe enough to now go in this building because of it.
Comfort and safety, yes.
Because of who they are, right? Like we want our children in so many ways, they're taking us for granted and there's safety in that. They're not thinking that you're ever going to harm because they're like in their head, they take for granted the fact that there are parents that harm kids. They take for granted the fact that there are kids that can't sleep at night, but they find safety in it.
A perception of safety, at least.
Yeah. Right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like,
got it. So that mightn't actually be safety, but there's a perception of safety.
And that's so we want that, right? Like
we want the perception of safety, or we want safety.
so I think even with Christ,
right?
The perception of safety is what gets you in.
Gets you in,
or lures you into.
Or lures you in. Gets you from that standpoint. Okay. Doesn't grant you access, but it gets you to the point.
It lures you in. And once you're in, then you really truly understand what safety means.
Right. Yes. Perception and desire for safety. Absolutely.
That's what brings you there.
Yeah. But that perception of safety could also bring complacency. So there's like a fine line between.
And that's also there's some level, and some of us Christians are complacent, right? Like we can argue. I'm not calling out denominations, creeds, or anything, but there's some things we can argue that you're just like, all right, now y'all just comfortable, cut it out, right? Like, but in the absence of knowing ignorantly or whatever that God got me, like, what do we like that?
Makes me wonder about the delineation between confidence or faith and complacency and where that line is. But That might be a conversation for another day.
That might be that where that Tim, not the Lord your God, comes in. That part. I think the complacency is to say that I am what's the word I'm looking for? Exempt
Mm.
from reproof.
No, but we want reproof, because if we don't
I
have
mean,
reproof, we're stupid.
sorry, reprimanding that part. I'm exempt from the consequence.
Gotcha, from consequence. Got it. Well, thank you for helping me with that. I think that's going to be my takeaway when I come to it. My price is the price. Do I really want to pay that price? Do I care enough for him to pay the price? That's what's up. Courtney, you have anything there for me?
I feel like Courtney got a new camera. Don't he look
Yeah.
clearer today?
Yeah, he looks crisp and clear, and the
Oh,
angle
see that 4D.
right here.
You know what I'm saying?
One shot right here.
Skin is skinning over there. You know what I'm saying? That skin is skinning. I see you.
and the picture not pixelating, right? So the
Okay.
internet solid too, you know.
Oh, you got money.
And everything like
Internet
Money
upgrade.
I run.
oh, good.
God is good. But no, I don't have anything off the top of my
Gotcha.
head.
How about you, Lorian?
I did not. I am behind on some of the reading.
No worries.
Trying to balance life right now.
I did have one more question coming out of John from the last time we were here, but I didn't get to ask it. John 8:43. The reference is John 8:43. And this is more, I guess, it's less spiritual and more interpersonal. But Jesus' interactions here caused me to pose a question. You ever John 8:43. You ever had a conversation with somebody and you feel like you were explicitly clear and they just, for whatever reason, don't understand you? And you start to wonder, well, is it me or is it them?
Often.
Regular.
So I guess my question based on this verse, which is saying, why aren't my words clear to you? Because you can't really hear what I say. How can you tell whether the failure to be understood is an opportunity for you to improve your communication skills, or is just an issue with your audience, receiver, or listener? How do you know when it's you and when it's them? Jesus seems to be very confident that he's clear and you all should understand, and the reason you don't understand because you're just dumb. But how do I, as a speaker, can I just take the confidence of Jesus and think that your failure to understand is you and not me? Like, how do I know? And are there any signs in the text that help us to know that Jesus was clear and they just wasn't getting it? Because I know it's been a pattern as I read John that plenty of people don't understand what Jesus said. So either are we giving the benefit of, because he's Jesus, he's God, he had to be the master communicator, right? So it had to be the people. But if he's the repeating element and the people, different people, his disciples ain't getting it, the Pharisees ain't getting it, is it him? And I was just wondering out loud, how do you tell when the failure is you or when it's them? And are there any signs, indications? How do you know?
So I believe communication is twofold. There's the hearer and the listener. And so it doesn't work well if one of those is broken. So if I'm saying something, it's the other person's responsibility to share, okay, this is what I'm understanding from what you're saying. And as you say that, I could be like, no, not what I'm saying. I am saying this. And then we do this until clarity is gained. I don't know if you can necessarily, it would have to be an internal work for both people. Like, okay, if he's not understanding something about what I'm saying is not clear, or his filter where he's at, whatever's going on, is not allowing him to hear the words that I'm trying to, he or she, that I'm trying to say.
How do you know when to one or the other? Like, how do you...
I don't think you could tell for the other person. You could tell. You can. I don't think you can tell for the other person whether or not it's just them or you. You can just make sure and make every effort to try to make sure what I'm saying is as clear as possible. And if you're not understanding what I'm saying, it's your job to say, "Hey, you said A. Is this what you meant when you said A?" And then for me to be patient enough. Okay, clearly they're not understanding. I need to then expand on what I'm saying. If the conversation is important enough, some people just give up and be like, "Look, never mind. Don't worry about it."
Go ahead, Sharika. Go ahead.
I think there are a couple things at play here. Jesus has been around for a while if he's on the Mount of Olives. And like, I kind of related to like when I first got here, I wasn't exposed to Trinities, right? And so like when y'all are saying certain things, I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, and at that point, you knew I didn't know, right? Like, it's just like, all right. And so I'm hanging around, you know, like little things like, hey, let's go line. We want to what? Like, okay, cool. Like, but after time of being around, there's like you start to speak and hear and understand, and then it's like, yo, if you not understanding me by being around me for so long, my guy, the problem is you. Like, Sharika, you see, you're amongst us. It's not like it's one Trini amongst Jamaicans. It's a Jamaican amongst Trinis. And I think where Jesus is coming from is here. It's like, I've been telling y'all about yourself since I was like 12. Right? Like I'm now grown. You're not even making an effort to understand me at this point. Like
the effort again.
So I feel the sentiment, but as I look at the text, Jesus is being cryptic and a little opaque in his thing, and the people are responding to what he is saying. Like, if you obey my teaching, let's go up to 31. You are really my disciples, which is 32. Then you'll know the truth. That'll be at John 8:32. Then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They respond to him, we are Abraham's children. We have never been slaves to anyone. So how can you say that we will be free? Right? So Jesus now goes again. What I'm about to tell you is true. Everyone who sins is a slave to sin. So he unpacks it. Okay.
Right.
A slave has no lasting place in the family, but the son belongs to the family forever. So if the Son of Man sets you free, you will be really free. Now you're going back to being opaque again.
I know that you were Abraham's seed.
Children, but you are looking for a way to kill me. You have no room for my word. I am telling you what I saw when I was with my father. You have been doing what you heard from your father. Now, they was just talking about Abraham as their father. So what are you talking about, Jesus? Right? Like, what are you saying? And so he's not, while in his mind, I'm sure this make a whole lot of sense to him. And in retrospect, as we looking at it and read it many, many years after, it making sense to us. But in the moment, as he's communicating, he not making no sense.
and I think my comment still stands. Like, it. First of all, I would look at Jesus and be like, "What?"
He's confusing. I ain't gonna hold you.
But I also wonder if you were seeking to understand him the way, like, what I don't believe, and I could be wrong, I don't believe that he purposely wants to confuse them. I think there's a little bit of cryptic, a little bit of frustration, a little bit of like, come on, son. Like, I don't know, like, even a little bit of insult. You ever done that before? Like, you just talk a certain way because you know they're not gonna understand you, and you just want them to feel dumb. That's just me. All right.
No, I don't know that one.
I try to be understood. I seek to be understood.
After a certain
No
point,
judgment. Just saying. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Just me if you want. After a certain point, I'm just like, y'all dumb. And so it will make you feel dumb. But yeah, so it's just me. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Next thing.
He goes on and you're looking for a way to kill me. Are you really Abraham's children? If you were, you would do what Abraham did, but you're looking for kill me. I'm a man who's told you the truth about God. Abraham didn't do the things you did, but you're doing what your father does. They say we have the right to claim to be God's children. They objected. The only father we have is God himself. If God were your father, you would love me. I've come here from him. I have not come here on my own. God sent me. Why are my words not clear to you? And then he offers, because you can't really hear what I say.
Well, earlier you said your heart is not. What did you say? Your heart is
maybe. Yes, that might be true, but he is also not clear.
He says you cannot, not you are not able to. You just can't hear me. You can't even if you wanted to.
There's a barrier between you actually hearing what I'm trying to say.
There is a barrier, absolutely. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. When is it that? When is it me? When is it them? And can I know when that is?
The
And
only
he's
person,
talking to who? Exactly. This is a bunch of
Right.
the spiritually,
The Jews, verse 31.
just all of them, or
The
were
Jews who
there?
were there at the time that he was talking.
Okay, okay,
The ones who gathered around him. Yeah.
okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that just over time, it just seems as though, again, I could say this from my purview, being that I'm reading it and I know a little bit more about, what has passed since then. But you know, it's all spiritually as he's speaking. Um, yes, you have the lineage, the genetics, but he's just saying from a spiritual sense, y'all not like Abraham. Y'all y'all not of his cloth. Like just
out of his cloth.
nah, they're not. And I think that's like a common theme that we kept seeing with throughout the Judean history. It was like not only are you just blessed by the genetics, and I think this is something we talked about before. It's just like, yo, there's is Abraham's children are also of it's mostly in a spiritual sense, like,
Mhm.
and that's where they kind of felt good, like, we came from Abraham. That's and from our genetics, period. So we good, we safe. It's like, I'm just like, y'all not striving to be like him though. Like that's the problem. Like,
Right. Right.
I'm thinking of like my daughter. Like if I try to tell her things at a young age where she's at, and I'm like, look, when you get older, you'll understand. Because no matter how much I say it, no matter how many different ways I flip it, twist it, turn it, she just not in the space or the place or have the right context to understand what I'm saying. And when I get older, I was telling my mom, like, Mom, I remember when you used to.
So Lorraine, given that it seems like the person delivers knows whether or not the recipient can understand them.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you had an idea that these folks wasn't gonna get what you think.
Maybe.
Some of them were getting it,
But I think about sometimes when I'm talking to Julian and I'm like, I speak in French. You're not. Why are you having such a hard time understanding? Pick up the thing and move it from here to there, please. Now, please. And he's looking like a deer in headlights. Like what? What? And so, when you try to say it a different way, pick up the red thing from that table and move it over there.
sometimes people are not in a place to hear it, and sometimes they don't even get the full grasp or revelation of what she said until later. Even like when we do Water for the Thirsty, it's where you are in life that brings out certain things. So you can read the same thing. You've been reading the same book with same verse and did not get the things you got last like 3 years ago. Or you got different things, different points. I think it just depends on where you are, what context you're in that pulls out certain things. And I think, like Sharika said, like he knew he was who was dealing with. He knew who was really listening. He knew who was going to hear.
I guess I'm looking for, if I'm the communicator, at what point do I, accept that I have done my best and this problem is now yours?
The moment that he let them know that Judas was about to kill him.
Hey,
At what point do I realize,
You know what?
I've done
Yeah.
my best here. I have been explicit. You just being difficult.
But it may not just be that they're being difficult. That's what I'm saying. There has to be like understanding on both sides. Like,
I've given you enough to turn on in my young youth age, because Jesus did not have to die at that age. Listen, I'm gonna wrap this up. I've given you what I got. Tomorrow, when y'all think about it, in the good morrows, y'all figure it out.
hey man, they keep on asking them, yeah, again, which of you convicts me of sin? So he's like, yo, if I sin, tell me how I sin. They can't.
I am my words.
But also as parents, because all of you are parents.
Yeah.
Some of you with children that don't speak back yet. Or at least not English, because I'm sure she gives
Great times. Great times.
she be giving you words.
Hmm.
So tell you just be like, yo, I realize you really don't want to understand me, and he who does not hear must feel. Go ahead and do what you're doing. It doesn't mean that I'm going to harm you. That's not what I'm saying. Whatever the consequence of this is, it's fine. Go ahead. Because you, to your point, like, Julie, you're not trying to hear me. So, or tomorrow you'll think about it.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think about, how can I be a better communicator? And when I've reached my max effectiveness,
That's a relationship, though, isn't it? Like, you should, at least in my experiences, I know who I can say certain things to and know that it's landing versus that they're just hearing me. And so it's like, I can only improve how well I express myself, but I can't improve how well you receive what I'm giving you.
How much of what their failure to receive is them, and how much of it is you?
But I would, in therapy, I've learned when I am speaking in parables versus when I am being vulnerable and honest.
Yeah.
And I think once you learn that about yourself and it's brought into your conscious state, you're aware of whether or not you're communicating at your highest potential or not.
And it doesn't mean that the person is intentionally not trying to hear you all the time. Like, it's not like this, the motive is, oh, I don't want to hear what you have to say. It's like, genuinely, you're saying what you're saying, and I'm interpreting it this way. And even after you explain and try to rephrase, give context, give drawings, make pictures, whatever sense you
You're still hearing something other than what I said. Just something else.
Like, at that point, you just like, okay, well, right now the purpose of communication is for understanding. So if we're not understanding, we're gonna have to put this one on.
Take a break.
Or you could be like Kendrick and be like, it doesn't matter.
But it does, because clearly you're making that much effort to communicate what you're communicating. So it does matter.
No, I promise you, he made effort. And he was like, it doesn't matter. Right. Like, but I also say there's also the space, like, I may not understand today.
Right.
Similar to the disciples, Jesus, he left. Right. Like, eventually, like, and it's just like, all right.
Yeah. Right. We're gonna stop.
They'll get it in the time they're supposed to get it.
You got to.
You just pray that it's not too late, but yeah.
And that's between you and whoever you serve. That ain't gonna
Very much.
We are at 5 to 10, so I guess we could do takeaways. I'm gonna go first because I have mine right at the top of my head, and I'm gonna say it again. The price is the price. Price is the price. I'm leaving with that. I've dealt into the, if we do this, we'll find them. And that's what his promise is. I've been in that space, but I never gave a lot of thought to, well, why is there that much effort? And because he's setting his value price and he's trying to weed out those who care or who perceive the value, perceive his intrinsic value. So, and he wants to be in relationship with those people. He wants to be in a relationship with all people, but he wants to be the relationships to 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 have value to the people who are in them. So that would make sense. And yeah, that's my takeaway. Courtney, what about you?
Um, I think that first conversation that I came on the stream to, where you guys are speaking about proverbs, and I guess we were just talking about the words being like a sword, or I guess truth, um, or speaking truth, or speaking sometimes, sharing wisdom to someone in a sense can be like a sword, cutting, so forth. I think for me again is just like that takeaway for me was just we relating it to a sword can be used one way, and then also in another way it could be something that is used for healing, and that took me again to that thought process of application for me. It was like, you know what, sometimes was someone be pushing you, um it's, you know and pushing you to be better is not an attack, it's act of love.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't care, they wouldn't say anything. So
That's what's up. How are you, Lorraine?
I know I was late, but I guess towards the later end, like being patient with your process and the process of other people. Um, because even in communicating, there should be some level of patience,
Mm-hmm.
um, and understanding that a person just may not be in the space to understand. And same with us, like when God's trying to drill home some things to us, and it's like, I know for me, I get frustrated because it's like, man, this shouldn't be. I should understand this thing by now. Like I should get it by now, and I still don't get it because I'm doing the same stuff. It's just being patient. Like it's a process. Like you're not there yet, but you will get there, or you can get there. Um, yeah.
Sharika?
The one thing that keeps swirling in my head is like perspective, right? And like the perspective that I read, the perspective that I take on conflict, the perspective that I just even engage God in, right? Like perspective matters. And in so many ways, I might want to check my perspective.
Mm. Against? Or how you doing that check? What you checking for?
So the first one that came to mind was like value. Like, have I overvalued myself?
Mm.
Right? Like I always tell people, don't ever overvalue yourself to believe that I would knowingly lie to you. Like that's crazy, right? So it's like, have I overvalued my role in this? Have I overvalued my emotion in this? Have I overvalued my approach in this? Like, is there a world that I could really be wrong? Right? Like that's what's coming to mind.
Got it. Got it. I appreciate that. Didn't get any takeaways in the chat.
No.
Just not yet. We're right at 10 o'clock. So, Courtney, would you be willing to pray us out?
all right, cool. By your heads, close your eyes. Sorry. Dear kind and gracious Father who art in heaven, we want to just thank you, dear Father, for bringing us to another work week, allowing us to see another Sabbath. Again, we're just grateful for the opportunity that we've been blessed to have to have one another, have all those tune in each and every first and third Friday, just to listen, to give insight, share perspective. As we all just come here to gain better understanding of your word, uh, grow in our wisdom and our knowledge of who you are. I say that you continue to bless this ministry, bless everyone that participates, bless those that are yet to see the program but will in the future. We just pray that all these efforts will be blessed by you, to do and continue further this work. Um, Again, Lord, we ask for a restful, peaceful Sabbath. Again, be with all those that are tuning in that also may be dealing with some things, dealing with some pain, some hurt, so whatever stresses, whatever weight and burden may all be on them. We pray for them. Pray that you will heal them, that you will take it away, or you'll just walk with them through it all and all the way through. Until you come again, we ask that you help us continue to fight the good fight. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, thank you. We are at episode 23 of 24, which means next time we meet, the first Friday in August, we would have ended year 10. So looking forward to celebrating that milestone, having completed a 10th year. And then we'll see, where God is leading us in the 11th year. But I'm looking forward to that. So we had actually tried to start in August, and then the computers didn't work. So we ended up starting on the third Friday in August, not the first Friday in August, because the first Friday things didn't work out. We had technical issues. So,
Okay.
so yeah. All right. So first Friday in August is the 2nd, I think. So we'll see you guys then. I think there may be a little bit of a break in between there. Was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Mm-mm.
No, it's just one. Yeah, normal 2 weeks. All right, cool. All right, until then, continue reading with us. Drink up, and we'll see you in August. Have a good one, everybody. Good night.